Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30. College football.
College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another super riveting edition of Outputting Our Coverage. After a week off, we are recharged, ready to spew sports knowledge. But before we get into the exciting talk of college football and all the goings-on in the sports world, we'd like to take a moment to talk about what happened in Boston a couple weeks ago. Probably one of the most unsettling events since 9/11, at least that I can remember, in terms of just feeling that you're not safe anymore where you are.
Right. And you know, of course, just sitting at the finish line, all these people were happy, cheering people on after really an amazing feat. Running 26 miles is pretty amazing, but it was also on Patriots Day. Just seems kind of innocuous, a day you take for granted.
Yeah. By now you know the story. Bombs exploding at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 2 suspects, 1 dead, 1 in custody after a couple of day-long manhunt.
Really not that bad, though.
No, I mean, I thought it was interesting that they had to shut down the entire city of Boston. That's pretty incredible. Saw some of the pictures there, just looking like something out of Walking Dead or something. Just
right.
Ghost town, literally. But really, I think, you know, something that people may not understand about this, the Boston Marathon, basically the Super Bowl of marathons.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's the big one. People might be asking, why Boston? You know, why not New York? I mean, it's a big deal sporting event. There's a lot of really top runners that are engaged in this. But, you know, something I heard that kind of stuck out to me was, you know, how ridiculous of these people to try to destroy something like this, and how amazing is it that in this country, we are free to engage in something difficult and hard like running in a marathon just because we want to.
Right.
Yeah. That's
other people call it, you know, running from danger or,
right.
You know, finding food. People run marathons here because, you know, they want to train their body and condition to a peak performance.
Right. And, you know, certainly a lot of interesting and unsettling things to think about coming out of this. I mean, I think we remember after 9/11, the sporting events, security was much, much tighter.
Oh, yes, definitely.
It kind of seems to me like it had gotten a little bit more lax again recently. I'm sure we're going to see that tighten up a little bit. But, you know, just the way our world works, there are a lot of instances where there are large groups of people gathered together, and you're not going to be able to completely make those things safe.
No, I don't think so. And we could get into a bunch of politics here, but we're not that kind of show. So, I mean, really what it comes down to is there are crazy people, and they're going to do some crazy things. And when it comes down to it, there's not a whole lot that you can prevent them. There's not a whole lot we can do to prevent them from doing that. But I think what you take out of this more than anything is the way that Boston and really America has come together. If you need to have the hairs on your arms or the back of your neck stand up, go to the YouTube and watch the opening ceremonies for Boston Bruins.
Oh, I saw that.
The national anthem.
That was something.
It is. And it's just amazing how through all this adversity, people just find a way to come together.
Yeah, and people may say that sports are, you know, stupid or they don't really mean anything, but, you know, you watch an event like that, and those are the things that, you know, make our freedom great, is, you know, the opportunity that we have to care so much about a sports event or something. You know, that is an incredible thing in this world, to be advanced beyond the point of having to worry about where your food and shelter are going to come, and be in a position where you can hate your rival sports team and, you know, be a fan of sports stuff. It's really just an incredible thing.
Right.
So.
It is. And we live in the best world, or best country in the world.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. From the best country in the world, on a lighter note, to the best marketing team in
I'm
the
telling
world.
you, just absolutely innovative.
I'm not sure if you have seen the news coming out yesterday. The official name for the NCAA College Football Playoff is College Football Playoff.
Do you have the applause queued up?
I wish.
Or the shocks?
or the
Right. Oh,
the
yeah.
groan.
I don't know.
What the crap? I mean,
I think the only thing that could have been any less dramatic would be the NCAA Division I men's football runaround.
yeah.
It's
I
terrible.
mean, could we not have at least gotten an article in there, like the College Football Playoff?
Right. Or I like the idea of Thunderdome.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, something.
Or the
you know?
or the SEC's second playoff.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand why they did it. I saw an article today. They're trying to make it nondescript so that when they expand to 8 teams, they don't have to change the name.
Right.
Makes sense. You
It
don't want to
does.
call it like the Final Four or anything like that because you're just going to end up expanding it later. So
Right.
I understand why they did it, but they legitimately paid a marketing firm to come up with this name.
Did they? I did not see that.
That really happened. Yes.
Man, how do we get into marketing firms?
Exactly. Marketing is voodoo science.
Right.
If there's anything I've learned in my short career in business.
See, now, it is true, though, that some names evolve out of time. The NCAA basketball tournament was not always known as March Madness.
That's true.
That kind of developed. So maybe we'll see a moniker slapped on there.
yeah, you know, we can hope for Thunderdome. We'll start.
I will
promoting
be.
that
We will be
immediately.
promoting hashtag
Yeah.
Thunderdome for the next couple years.
I think so.
Really
yeah.
get behind that movement.
If you have a nickname that you would like to see,
Oh, I cannot wait
for
to see
this,
these.
you can tweet it at us.
Out.
Send it to our. I believe if you're listening live, you can send us a message. Send it to our Facebook. Comment on one of our blogs. In fact, we might write a blog about this, just brainstorming some possible,
That is a great
code
idea.
names.
Oh yeah,
Or cultural pop culture names for this tournament. So
we're gonna get that started.
Yeah.
Hashtag Thunderdome.
yeah. Also, along those same lines, I don't know if you've seen the 4 logos that are up for choice for this.
Yes, I have.
I mean, they literally look like they were drawn, or they look like the auto-generated logos from NCAA football, the video game.
Right. And
I mean,
do
it's
you remember
really sad.
there was an NCAA football game at one point where you could design your own logo?
Yeah, it looks like that.
Yeah, and
Looks like
it
that's
looks
what they did.
identical to that.
Yeah, I believe one of the logos, if you're looking at the website, number 3 or C, whichever designation they're using, was designed by ESPN. And ESPN usually has some pretty good logos. This
Right.
one's very disappointing. And the other 3 were designed by, yet again, another marketing firm. So I believe the one that's winning right now is kind of a circular logo with spikes coming out of it.
Awesome.
So that's kind of Thunderdome-esque. You know?
Hashtag Thunderdome. I'm going to repeat it
there
20
should've-
times today.
There should have been more flames, I feel like. And also, I think...
Should there have been a tiger?
well, you remember how the old Big Ten logo, kind of in the negative space, had an 11 in it?
Oh, yeah.
In there? I think the NCAA football playoff logo in the negative space should have the SEC logo.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That's really what it's going to come down to.
Or
So,
we own this.
yeah,
That'd be awesome.
something along those lines. So, I believe we're going to get some more details. I've seen alluded to that the first championship game under this new system is going to be at the Jerry Dome.
It will be in the Jerry Dome.
Which is not really a surprise.
No.
And the first semifinals, I believe, are going to be at the Cotton Bowl, also
Right.
at the Jerry Dome.
Yep.
Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta's
Yes.
getting one of them.
But they might have to change their name. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, they
To
they
what?
might have to change it to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
Really?
Yeah. It came out in ESPN earlier today about an hour ago.
Who's driving that?
not the ESPN, the NCAA is driving that, and they've actually talked to the Chick-fil-A people for about the last 2 years now, discussing a name change.
Interesting. The other one I've heard mentioned, the Fiesta Bowl. That's
Right.
going to be one of them. Do we know who the 4th is at this point?
I don't know the fourth.
Okay. So yeah, definitely want to be paying attention as these announcements come out over the next few days. It's getting closer, David.
I can't wait.
2014 going to be. This is the last year coming up under the BCS system.
And today, for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who really care, the show is having official Decision Day 2013. about when we are going to start doing previews for these games.
It's coming up. Football season, sure, you might say spring practice just ended, and you'd be right. But there's a lot of teams in the SEC now. There are 14 of them, to be exact. And we're going to try to do one per show this time. We were a little rushed last year, having to cram them in together. We really want to take our time. We know what you listen for is the SEC content. And I was just seeing a great
off air,
a wonderful picture of Mark Emmert
on
the other screen.
If anybody wants to see that picture, I'm uploading it to our Twitter account now. So head over there and check this out.
That's good stuff. On that note, we should probably take a commercial break. So we're going to do that. On the other side, Alabama and Auburn both having their A-Day games this past weekend. We'll recap what happened at each one of those, give you some hints as to what's to come in the upcoming football season of 2013. So stick around. We'll be right back.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count. SEC, college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. And Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Yeah, SEC preview. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to Outputting Our Coverage. As we mentioned, it almost felt like a fall Saturday this past week. Auburn and Alabama football rolling in Jordan-Hare Stadium and Bryant-Denny Stadium. Just a good preview. Neither team lost. It was just a great day for the state.
It was.
Just great stuff happening.
Speaking of rolling, do you want to talk about the trees real quick?
Yeah, we might as well go ahead. I was on the ground in Auburn this week doing official research for the Outputting Our Coverage show.
Did they give you a media pass? We tried to get that worked out.
No, there's very long lines for everything, including media access at this event. 83,000 people showing up for the A-Day game, by far the most ever for Auburn. That, of course, a combination of two things. One, new head coach always brings more people, but
Definitely.
The ceremony for the final rolling of tumors really brought out some people to A-Day. I went before the game to get a final roll in, and I'm glad I did because after the game, when the official ceremony was happening, there were probably at least 10,000 people in the streets surrounding the trees. If you haven't seen on Twitter or various other outlets, there's an aerial shot. There was a helicopter flying above that's taking some really neat aerial shots of all the people in the area, the toilet paper on the trees. Certainly, it's a sad thing. Personally, I hate the fact that my wife and I, someday when we have kids, won't be able to take them to the same exact trees that we have a lot of memories underneath. But
they'll get some trees up there.
There's a plan in place to put in some new trees starting next year. It's going to be a temporary system for this year. Not going to take exactly as long as I thought for them to get in and replace it. And I've seen the plans. It'll look nice.
I think
it will. It'll look nice. It's certainly not the same exact thing, but it was a great ceremony to see that, kind of rallying the troops. And David, as you've mentioned on some of the comments for the blog I wrote last week, if you haven't looked at my blog about some of the negative media surrounding Auburn these days, shameless plug on my end. Please go read that. Check out the comments underneath. Weigh in on what side you see. But one of your comments was that it seems to you like in adversity, Auburn seems to do better.
I think so, and it's a great American attribute, and just like with the Boston Massacre, it brings everybody together. And I think the one thing that you can say about the national championship year is that everybody came in. I think y'all even had the slogan "All In."
Yeah.
I mean, everybody came together. It seemed like it was Auburn against the world, and worked out pretty well for you last time.
Yeah, I'll tell you one person who is really benefiting from all of these media attacks, and also from the problems with tumors and everything. Jay Jacobs, Auburn's athletic director.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Auburn folks, myself included, would not be sad to see him go, but he's kind of come out swinging, if you will, releasing statements, kind of dismantling the media stories that have come out. And I mean, kudos to him for finally standing up and taking a stand. Parts of me wonder where that was in 2010. I think the athletic department as a whole has kind of changed their strategy. I think for a while they thought, let's not dignify this stuff with a response, and then it just kept coming. So,
and that's one of the things with, unfortunately, you don't want to have experience in these kind of things, but with experience, you do get these insights.
Right. So, he's looking a little bit better now to some folks for doing that, and we'll have to see how things play out long term. I mean, really, it comes down to winning on the field.
Speaking of on the field, you were at the game.
I was there.
You watched it. The biggest question for me is Auburn is the quarterback.
Yep.
What's the quarterback play?
Still a big question.
Okay.
There was no resolution from what I saw. Honestly, at this point, it's very difficult for me to feel comfortable with either Kyle Frazier or Jonathan Wallace under center at this point. Now,
well, it's not. I mean, at least for Auburn, no quarterback has to go under center.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Semantically, yes,
right.
That is true. I'm really interested to see Nick Marshall, the junior college quarterback, coming in, as well as Jeremy Johnson. I think both of them are going to have a very legitimate shot to win this job. I mean, neither of the guys that are already there have any sort of a leg up at all, in my opinion, right now. Kyle Frazier is still kind of dumbfounding to me how he could have run Malzahn's offense all throughout high school. He's been running that same exact offense, and still mentally, he just doesn't seem like he gets it on the field.
But do you understand the mental toll that he took last year? I mean, I think that guy...
I understand.
He's either going to come out on the other side stronger, or he's going to be just a shell.
I understand. Yeah, I mean, what they went through last year, even if you're going back to something you've done before, it's, you're still got those mental scars.
Right,
I understand that. So, quarterback's still a big question. I predict, as has been the case in the past few years, we won't know a starting quarterback for Auburn until right before the first game.
I don't think either. Predict right now, who's the opening day starter? I'm going to ask you the same question at least 3 more times before we get there.
Right now, opening day starter, I'm going to go Jonathan Wallace.
Okay, now 3 weeks in, who's the starter?
Nick Marshall.
Okay. I'm gonna stick. I think Kyle Frazier gets the benefit of the doubt and is the starter opening day. I think 3 weeks in, Wallace is the starter, and he keeps it the rest of the year.
Okay. All right. So neither of the newcomers for you.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. A couple positive things for Auburn, though. The defense looked better, especially tackling-wise. That's been a big problem for Auburn. There was not near as much of the soft coverage that we've seen that I've hated for the past few years. There was a lot of bump and run, getting right up there on the guys. And a name that you're going to need to watch out for, Justin Garrett, kind of coming out of nowhere, was very much an also-ran under the Chizik regime, has emerged in this new star hybrid position in Ellis Johnson's defense, just going crazy. I heard his name on basically every single defensive play that he was in the game at A-Day. He had a scoop and score for a touchdown, almost an interception, couple tackles for loss, just excellent performance.
Now, some guys change when they're put in the right spot. Yeah. He could be one of those. Let me ask you about the bump and run coverage. Do you think they have the athletes on the outside to play that system?
That's going to be the interesting thing. I remember making the bold proclamation last year that the Auburn secondary was going to surprise folks, and they surprised in a negative way.
Right.
And the baffling thing to me is I think there are some athletes there. Just the style of coverage, or maybe the scheme last year was not right for them. Now, are they some of the top cornerbacks in the SEC? I don't think so. But I think there's enough athleticism and the right kind of size to at least be serviceable in that type of coverage.
I agree. So, okay. What about the D-line? I know that was a real sore spot last year.
Yeah, D-line's still a question mark, definitely. Defensive tackle was a big problem last year, stopping the run. I think that may still be an issue this year. A junior college player, Ben Bradley, came in a little bit overweight. He's going to need to get a little bit better in shape, but certainly naturally gifted. There's a couple other guys. I'm just not sure about the depth at defensive tackle. That worries me a little bit, as does depth at defensive end as well. There's a couple of solid players. D Ford, a great pass rusher. A couple other guys, but I think depth on the defensive line may be an issue. And also, linebacker is still a little bit squirrely for me as well.
We only have 2 of them on the field, so you won't be...
So it's not quite as bad, but certainly Chris Frost, a guy who's starting to come into his own a little bit, and Jake Holland, a guy that's kind of let Auburn fans down before, but he's got a lot of experience at this point, so kind of the question becomes, do you take him and continue in that role with him, or do you try one of these younger guys who might be a little bit more athletic? So.
Okay. Well, I've got one more question. Your Ontario McCaleb is going to be a big hurt. Do you think the running backs are going to hurt because of that?
I don't know. The interesting thing about the running backs, the style may change a little bit. The junior college player coming in, Cameron Artis-Payne, was actually the offensive MVP of the game. Reminds me a lot of Ben Tate.
Okay.
Same number, actually,
There
ironically. But same kind of running style, a little bit bigger guy. Maybe not quite as fast, but he's shifty enough to get around and more of a bruiser kind of guy. And then you have him. You got Trey Mason, who was very quietly a 1,000-yard rusher last year.
Oh, yeah.
In the midst of a terrible offensive scheme.
Right.
So he's a very talented guy. You also have Corey Grant, who started at Alabama, transferred over to Auburn. Was a big standout last spring, and then never saw the field during the season.
Right.
So. Definitely a guy with some speed. There's been some questions about his agility, but he might be a guy that can kind of fill the Ontario McCaleb role.
That would be really interesting to see, especially considering he came from Alabama.
Yeah, and you got other options as well. Some of the wide receivers, like a Trevon Reed or a Quan Bray, might be able to fill that role somewhat. Although Trevon Reed just continues to disappoint me.
Right.
So many drop passes. A very small build. I mean, it's similar to Ontario McCaleb, but for a guy who was a huge recruiting prize coming out of high school, he has done very little to impress me.
I don't know. He's still got some development with the coaches. We'll see what he does this year.
Yeah, so.
Well, on the other side of the tracks, Alabama had their A-Day game, and I think the biggest thing you can take away is that T.J. Yeldon wins the MVP twice with back-to-back 100-yard-plus games in the A-Day game. So he's still going to be there. There's 18 other running backs behind him. So
running back, definitely a position of depth for Alabama, I think you could say.
It is, but the quarterbacks, surprisingly, were really shaky. 6 interceptions overall. McCarron threw 2 of them to start out. Sinceri took one back to the house. So don't know if that's an indication of the secondary at Alabama maybe not hurting as much as some people thought they might, losing all the talent, or if the quarterbacks are shaky, or if it's just a spring game and doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I tend to think that all quarterbacks look a little bit rusty in the spring game.
It takes tough to get up.
It takes a little bit longer to get your rhythm than it does for running backs or some of those other positions. Or it could just be that A.J. McCarron's new chest tattoo is thrown off his balance.
I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the chest tattoo. Yeah. Overall, not a ton to take from the 8A game. I mean, 17-14 final scores, close defense as you would expect, ruled the day. Nick Saban, as you would expect, angry about everything. Says he didn't like the sense of his players while they were out there. He said they felt privileged what they had. I think he'll probably work on that in offseason, but I don't put a whole lot of stock into anybody's 8A game. Auburn's was a little more important with the new coaching staff and all the tradition, but Alabama's just kind of another day at the park.
So the question marks in my mind for Alabama this upcoming season are number one offensive line.
Of course.
How do you see that one shaking out?
It's still shaky. I mean, they're still trying a lot of people at a lot of different positions. They're really moving people around. I don't think we'll know anything about that until closer to the start of the season. And I even think that more than any other year, this is going to be the year where even during the season you're going to see a lot of rotation.
Yeah. So offensive line and the defensive secondary, to me, are the two big question marks.
That's the big question mark. Sinceri looks like he's ready to step up and really have a bigger role in that defense. He's made some pretty outstanding plays, but for the most part, he's the third or fourth guy mentioned in that secondary. I think Sinceri's probably ready to step up and take a leadership role. Outside of that, they're going to have to take some young guys or even trying out receivers at corner. I think they're kind of scrambling right now to see who they can get back there.
Yep, so big question marks there. We'll see how some of that stuff unfolds during the season. It's kind of disappointing. Only 78,000 people showing up for Alabama's 8-day game.
I know.
I mean, Jesus, it's like...
Well, they had no trees that were dying. So.
Yeah, that's true. Although most years Auburn would not be able to sniff 78,000 in the spring game.
Right.
So.
83,000, that's a pretty good home game, isn't it? Home game attendance?
I'll be honest with you. I think there might have been more people at the spring game this year than at quite a few of the actual home games toward the end of last year.
Well, you can understand that. A lot of people coming back because it's the last time. But
yep.
One guy coming out of the Alabama camp who you wouldn't expect to hear any news about this year, Rolando McClain.
Yep.
Big Alabama linebacker. We actually went to school with him at Decatur High. Had a little bit of trouble in Oakland. Didn't get along with the coaching staff, so he got dropped and picked up by the Ravens for close to league minimum. I mean, it was a $700,000 contract.
What was he making in Oakland? I mean, he was getting paid pretty well out there.
He made,
right?
I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $26-28 million over the term of his contract.
Yeah.
So in 3 years,
definitely a wake up call, if you will.
Right. At $400,000 in incentives, but still, you're talking about $1 million and a half. Rolando needs to stop coming back to Decatur. This is the third time he's been arrested in Decatur in less than 2 years. Apparently this time he was standing around in the middle of the road with a bunch of his friends. Some people called because there was a fight going on. The police come. They just want him to clear out of the street is all they want him to do. Rolando from the back of the crowd just reportedly starts yelling, "F the police." They finally...
That's a problem. You can't do that.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And they finally find him and put the cuffs on him. Now, the police officer said they didn't recognize who it was until they got the cuffs on him. That can be debated. But really, I mean, you're trying to keep a low profile on a new team. What are you doing, Rolando?
It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand that you're trying to impress your friends and act tough, but you're in the NFL. Why do you need to impress anybody?
I don't know.
You know?
If anybody's looking for somebody to keep Rolando McClain out of trouble, I will more than happily do it. About $100,000 is what I would charge a year. All I want to do is be over his travel plans.
Yeah, just stay out of the state.
Stay out of the state. You were in Oakland, California, of all places, for 3 years. Not one arrest. Not one complaint. You didn't make the news, which was kind of sad because you weren't making tackles, but you didn't make the news, good or bad. Come home to Alabama 3 times less than 2 years and get arrested. Just stay away.
I mean, I came back to Alabama. I haven't been arrested since.
That we know of.
Right.
Yeah. ESPN wouldn't cover your arrest.
No, I don't know. Oh, I am connected to Auburn, so they might.
That's true.
Yeah. So, disappointing. You see a guy who gets a chance to turn his career around, get things back on the right track. And,
in a good system for him, I think. I think there's a perfect system for him.
And actually, I believe he was already out on bond for a previous traffic stop where he had wrote the same thing, I think, F the police, as what he had signed his name as.
Right.
That's not his name. That's false. So.
That is not his name. And the charges of him discharging a weapon near someone's face, they were dropped when
always seemed a little bit weird to me.
Well,
charges being dropped.
Yeah, we won't get into that here.
Yeah. So I don't know. That disappointing, I think, is the word to use with that.
I just hope the Ravens keep him.
Yeah. I don't know. Another. Ironically enough, I guess an Auburn player might benefit from this. Josh Bynes, also a linebacker for the Ravens. I'm not exactly sure if they'd be competing for the same spot, but certainly doesn't hurt him.
It wouldn't. I just think
the guy out of the way.
I think the Ravens probably look for an inside linebacker somewhere in the draft that they can have as a fallback just in case.
Yeah. Sad stuff. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side, outputting our coverage involved with an NFL mock draft. It's ongoing, started this past weekend. We'll get you up to speed on that. And the actual draft coming up very soon as well. We'll kind of break down a couple things there, let you know what to expect in the, 7 full days of coverage or something
at least.
They have at this point.
Right.
Yeah, it's I
think
it's a festival.
It's 3 full days.
Yeah, so... We'll be right back on Outputting Our Coverage, talking the NFL.
Step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut ties with all the lies that you've been living in. And if you do not want to see me again, I would understand.
All right, so this weekend, Outputting Our Coverage has been involved with an NFL draft. We really want to appreciate or thank Brian Lamb with 365sports.com and also NFLDraftLounge.com. That's where we've been doing all this from. Been a really interesting time. We were originally only going to do the St. Louis Rams for the show, but they wanted to fill in a couple extra spots. So a couple of our writers from the blog, Jacob Tutwiler took the Jaguars, and we had Lucas Roberts taking the 49ers. But I really had the Rams, and I wanted to break them down. Kind of looks like they needed a wide receiver, a safety, running back. They also needed some help at an outside linebacker and guard. So really wanted to get the best we could for them. Saw that we had 2 first-round picks and got excited about that, and was very excited when Tavon Austin fell to me at number 16. I think he just fits perfectly. They got rid of Amendola. They lost Steven Jackson in the backfield to Atlanta. Tavon Austin can fit a couple of their needs. He's fast. He's an immediate down-the-field threat to add to their wide receiver core. He can also come in the backfield and add some speed back there. And then at 22, just 6 picks later, Eddie Lacy was sitting right there.
Spin move.
So talk about a guy who looks like Steven Jackson. So
that's true.
I thought it was a great pick. I thought it filled 2 needs right there in the first round. And then Lucas Roberts and I actually did the first trade of the draft. There was a little behind-the-scenes negotiations going on there. I actually took the best of two different trades. I traded up to the 34th pick in the second round and picked up Eric Reed, the safety from LSU. I actually wanted, Elam from Florida or maybe Vaccaro from Texas, but they both got picked out from under me, so I couldn't get any one of those. So I got my safety, and then in the third round, I picked up Jamie Collins. Do you remember him? He's an outside linebacker from Southern Miss. About 6'3", good speed to the outside, so felt good about that third-round pick. And
one of those sleeper guys.
He's a sleeper guy. Now, the real sleeper I got, and I don't think this is how the real draft will go, but I picked up Earl Wolf from NC State, one of the safeties from there. 110 tackles, 4 interceptions this year. He's had 8 forced fumbles throughout his career at NC State. Just a really solid safety. I picked him up in the 5th round, so what I'm looking at in the next, I've got a pick in the 6th and 2 picks in the 7th. Probably going to go offensive guard, and might even get another wide receiver before we get out of here. So
you're going to give any hints as to your picks so somebody else can steal them from you?
No, I am definitely not going to do that. I'm not even my own brother with the 49ers keeps at, or Lucas with the 49ers, my own brother with the Jaguars. I won't release who I'm taking with them, but I've got some sleepers I think will be okay, and y'all need to pay attention on our blog, outputtingourcoverage.wordpress.com. We will all be talking about the draft, who we picked, how we think they fit in, how we would rank our own draft. So pay attention there. Andy, what do you think about the real draft? Do you get into that?
A little bit. I mean, I pay attention to maybe the first 2 rounds.
Right.
After that, I mean, I'll watch the first day. What's the first round's the first day?
It's tomorrow night is the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably pay a little bit of attention to that. Maybe pay a little bit of attention to the second round. But once we get into players that I'm not really familiar with college, I don't really have a whole lot of interest in that. This year's kind of interesting to me because there's not like a slam dunk skill player.
No.
Like you had Andrew Luck last year or
RG3.
Cam Newton, RG3. Those are quarterbacks, but even running backs or wide receivers,
Reggie Bush, yeah.
There's not that guy that is he's a slam dunk,
right?
So it's more of a teams looking to fill needs, even at the top of the board. Which, if I were an NFL GM, I'd kind of almost be happy about that. That I wouldn't be feeling the pressure to maybe take somebody that doesn't really fill a need, but they're just such a superstar. Instead, I can get the right guy to fit what I need.
Exactly. Another thing I think makes this draft so interesting is you see so many different mocks because you really don't know what a team's going to do. There aren't those great star players that have to go at this position. So
yeah.
I'm excited to see what will happen.
I think it's pretty unanimous. Most people think Kansas City with the first pick is going to take Luke Joeckel from Texas A&M.
They think so. I think Fisher could work here too as a tackle because he plays on the opposite side of Albert. So
an interesting one to me, D. Milliner.
Right.
It's been reported this week that he's had about 6 surgeries. Would you have any reservations about taking him if you were a GM at this point?
Maybe some, but he's still going to go top 10. If you go in and look at the surgeries, a lot of them were scopes. Not major surgeries, not a lot happening. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But
yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility for scar tissue and things like that, but just something to think about, I guess.
just think with the corners, there's so much of a difference between Milliner and the next guy. I think a lot of people will take a chance on him.
I'm interested to see Sharif Floyd so high here on Peter King's mock draft. A guy who was good but not great at Florida.
There's a lot of people who have him up there. Some people are talking about moving him from a 4-3 to a 3-4. They think he fits better there. I don't know. That's one of those where he really elevated himself after the season.
But if you look through these mock drafts, I mean, you see a lot of SEC guys up there. Of course, D. Milliner, Chance Warmack right up there in the top 10. Barkevius Mingo from LSU. DJ Fluker.
I don't think he'll go that high. I think DJ's probably a second rounder.
Did you see DJ Fluker's fake tweet this week?
I did. He said he got hacked, but he said that he also took money from boosters and if they're going to pimp you got to pimp the game.
I see. Where's ESPN all over that one?
They were. It was on there.
I haven't seen an E60 special on it.
There was not an E60 special. They didn't have 6 months to prepare for that
true.
tweet.
That's true. You're right. There's your boy Tavon Austin up there on
right.
Peter King's mock draft going to the Jets.
The Jets need all kinds of stuff.
Peter King says the Rams are going to take Kenny Vaccaro out of Texas as safety.
I think that would be a good pick, but I don't think there's any possibility that Vaccaro's there. I think there are 3 or 4 teams who would probably take him ahead of them, especially maybe the Panthers. So
you remember Sheldon Richardson? Remember his big mouth from the season talking about Georgia?
Oh yeah, playing the old man football.
Yeah, so he's really hoping to play some old man football in the NFL.
That's right.
He's pretty high up here.
Jarvis Jones.
Not sure about that one either. Jarvis Jones definitely deserves to be up there. Eddie Lacy, they've got him in the first round here. It'd be interesting to see where exactly he falls.
I think so. I think he could fall out of the first round.
Manti Te'o. The lightning rod.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen anywhere from first round to third round with that guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think somebody will take a chance on him. These NFL GMs, they're...
See, I don't agree with this mock. I think Star Latui goes way before 26.
Yeah.
So
Justin Hunter from Tennessee, hanging around 25 here in this mock draft. Who else we got from... Cordero Patterson, JUCO coming to Tennessee.
And you know what?
He was good.
Derek Rogers is going to get picked as well, and you really have to kind of put him as the Tennessee receiver, too.
That's true.
He played his year at Tennessee Tech. But I think this is going to be riddled with SEC talent because that's where the big talent is.
Who's an SEC player, former SEC player, that you think will be the surprise out of this draft?
A former SEC player that will be the surprise as far as making an impact on an NFL roster?
Yeah.
I think Barrett Jones. A lot of people are really down on him as a player. He's probably going to hold out till maybe the 3rd. Some people have him in the 5th round. I just don't see it. The guy is riddled with success.
He's got the right attitude.
He's got the right attitude, the work ethic. He can play any position on the line. Probably not in the NFL. I don't think he can play tackle in the NFL, but either guard or center. I think whoever gets him is going to get a real stand-up player.
He kind of reminds me of Jeff Saturday, the longtime center. He played for the Rams, played for the Colts.
I think he could be that guy.
Yeah. I think that's a good pick. Definitely a good pick. Not necessarily my pick, but a guy that I'll be interested to see how he shakes out. Corey Lemonier from Auburn. In my opinion, kind of underperformed at Auburn the past year.
Right.
A lot of scouts are very high on him. He was not in Peter King's first round mock draft here, but I could see him as a mid-second round guy.
Definitely. If this mock draft goes as it has, the 49ers will pick him up in the 2nd round. That would be a nice fit for him. The 49ers, a team who don't have a lot of needs, have about 7,000 picks in this year's draft. So they're going to add a lot through the draft.
Yeah. The thing about me with Corey Lemonier was he still seemed to need a little bit of work on his rush defense.
Definitely. I think so.
Certainly a good rushing the passer type of guy, but you got to be able to do it all in the NFL.
That's true. So, look at Dwight Freeney, though. He's made a living off the edge.
That's true. And in very specialized cases, I think you can make that work.
You just have to be elite at pass rushing.
I don't think he's elite.
I don't either.
We're going to take another quick break. Got a few more things to discuss here on the other side. The Braves just keep winning. Baseball in full swing. We'll break a little bit of that down for you in the last segment here of Outputting Our Coverage. All right, we are back here on Outputting Our Coverage. A couple final things to mention. The Atlanta Braves still playing the game of baseball very well.
They are. The only real stumbling block, and it's really confusing, has been the Pittsburgh Pirates. They lost 3 of 4 in Pittsburgh. It's just kind of confusing, but they went to Colorado and swept a doubleheader yesterday. had BJ and Justin hit back-to-back bombs. The home run is really the story with Atlanta this year. They are hitting a ton of them, leading the league right now. They're just crushing the ball, and they don't even have Brian McCann back. Freddie Freeman's been in and out of the lineup. He's been on the 15-day DL. Hayward in right field is now on the 15-day DL after an appendectomy, but he was only hitting 100 as a batting average before he came in. So really coming from the 2 pickups and some guys stepping in. So
you think Jason Hayward's just slumping, or do you think folks have kind of figured him out? Or
I think he had appendicitis and was really feeling it and didn't
might hurt you,
right? And didn't tell anybody and let it go on a little too long. But I think he'll come back. He'll be okay.
All right. So baseball in general, kind of trends right now. What's going on with the Angels? Have they kind of picked things up a little bit?
They're still playing around 500 ball.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
not big on the Angels. The Cardinals just swept the Nationals. That's a big deal. They just beat Strasburg today.
Yeah, the Cardinals still hanging around in first place of the Central at this point. The Phillies, what do you think about them?
I think they swung for the fences and missed. They tried to get the pitching rotation in there that they wanted. A little too old. They tried to ignore it, be the Boston Celtics of baseball, and came back and bit them. They tried it, and it's just not working out.
Got a lot of Phillies fans in my family. They've been lamenting this season.
They're going to keep lamenting.
With the Braves playing the way that they are, certainly, I think it's going to come down to the Braves and the Nationals in the East. That's fair.
It definitely will. Yeah. Although the Mets, if they can ever find somebody else, Harvey right now for the Mets is unhittable. I mean, they just toss him out every five days and get a win. So if they can ever find anybody else who can bring somewhat of that level of intensity to the mound, they might make a run for it. But right now, once every 5 days it isn't going to cut it.
All right, let's move to basketball. The NBA, our favorite topic on this show.
So much fun.
Just awesome stuff.
The Heat are killing the Bucks, even though they trash-talked. The Nuggets lost last night, even though they shot 50% and scored 117 points, and they lost by double digits. The Warriors were just shooting lights out. So,
have you seen the rumors that Phil Jackson might go coach the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Rumors are now squashed. Brown, who was at L.A. this year, or 2 years ago, and got fired, who came from Cleveland, is now back hired.
Oh.
Long-term contract.
That didn't take very long.
Didn't take very long. I think Jackson was like, thanks, no.
Yeah. So Cleveland fades back into obscurity at this point. What a mismanaged disaster.
I think Jackson comes back before he dies. I would love to see him.
Where do you think he'd come back?
The Clippers would be a neat one.
The Clippers?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
If the Clippers end up slipping and losing,
it'd be like a Rick Pitino kind of thing.
I think so.
Back to the rival.
That'd be so much fun. Have him in Dunk City with his Zen master.
That would be nice. That'd be some cool stuff. The Knicks are playing pretty well, right?
Knicks are playing really well.
But kind of a weird thing to say,
they're beating up on a really old Celtics team right now. So I want to see what they do in the second round. But yeah, they're looking good right now.
Yeah. All right. So
that's basketball. That's as much as basketball I can get.
That's as much basketball as we got. Any final thoughts on A-Day?
No. I just don't put too much stock in anything you saw.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, part of me feels like... All right, we got 30 seconds left in the show. Let's do right now an Auburn win prediction. How many wins?
6. 7.
I was going to go 7 too. That's no fun.
2 7s.
Yeah.
That means it must happen now.
Yeah. All right. So that's where I feel like Auburn's at right now without kind of going through the full schedule. Other side of the question, how many losses does Alabama have this year?
3.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to go 2.
Okay.
Interesting.
I'm going to say there's going to be one that sneaks up on them. One that you would not expect and they shouldn't lose. I think they're going to lose.
Interesting. Very interesting. We'll have to expand on that a little bit. Next week's show, make sure you stick around. SEC previews will be coming up as well. We're about to talk about that right now. We'll see you next week on Outputting Our Coverage.